What is up, everybody? Matt Modi here to give you my favorite NFL player prop picks for the Sunday specific NFL divisional round of the playoffs. That's a mouthful, but NFL player prop picks specifically for the Sunday games. Now, I'm recording this before the games have finished on Saturday. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, we had an amazing Saturday and we're on to an amazing Sunday. I've done this recap a bunch of times now, so I'll keep it quick. Wildcard weekend did not go our way. Had the worst week literally of the entire season. Literally had the worst week of any regular season week of the entire season. I hated that it happened in the playoffs, but we can't run from it. We can just face it. And I'm very confident that we're going to have a better divisional round than we had in the wild card. Regular season was amazing. You know, the stats you see on the screen include last week. So we were up 43 units in the regular season. We were down 6 units last week, so that now brings our profit to 37 units on the year. That's just how math works. And our ROI is a little bit over 16%, if I remember correctly. So our ROI dropped like 6% from last week to this week. That's what a brutal week does for you. But we've already moved on. We're on to another week, and hopefully we have a really good one. So I'm just going to get into it. Normally I have a question for you guys, but it's playoffs. It's important. I would just ask if you like the video, if you could like the video, if you could comment, if you could subscribe. So the first game of the day is the Rams at the Eagles. My first bet in this game, I'm taking Kyren Williams, and I'm taking him 80 plus rushing yards. Now, you can actually get a better price than plus 100 at Bet365. So for whatever reason, I love Outlier, which is the website that I'm using. They don't pull alt odds for Bet365, who is giving the best price for this number. That's what we're betting here. Kyren Williams, 80 plus rushing yards. Now, I get it. The Eagles' run defense is awesome. 7th fewest rushing yards per game. They have a very, very good run defense. But there are a couple of reasons why I think Kyren Williams is going to have a good game. Number one, volume. He's hit the 80 plus number in 9 of 17 games. He averages about 80 yards per game, so he's right on this average. Now, that includes this game where he barely played because the Rams were down like 21-0 in the first 3 drives of the game. They took out their starters pretty early in this game, so he only had 12 rush attempts in that game. That's an outlier. Another outlier is this game here. Another game against the Cardinals where they only had 13. They scored 13 points. They only allowed 9 points in that game. Every other game, 15 or more rushing attempts, and he had 20 plus rush attempts in like 8 of the games. I mean, 24, 22, 21, 23, 22, 29 in back-to-back weeks, 23. Last week he only had 16, but as we can see, that game was a blowout. I'm not expecting this game to be a blowout. I'm expecting it to be close either way. And the Rams want to stay on schedule. They want to run the ball, hence the attempts for Kyren Williams. Now, he missed this last time against the Eagles. He had 72 rushing yards. I expect the Eagles' run defense to struggle a little bit more than what we've come to expect. Now, every team's dealing with injuries, so they should be able to survive a linebacker. But Kobe Dean is out for the Eagles. He's a very important linebacker very, very important player, starting linebacker, calls the plays, all that stuff. Really, really good in the run game. And we saw when he went out last week, the Packers really started to attack him. He missed some tackles on Josh Jacobs, and we saw Josh Jacobs go off for over 80 yards against the Eagles, I think on 18 carries, if I remember correctly, something like that. But a lot of that success came after Nakobe Dean got hurt. So I think the Rams are going to identify a matchup advantage with whoever ends up being the starting linebacker for the Eagles. And I think they're going to go at him with a lot of misdirection stuff. And I think it's going to be a lot of Kyren Williams in the run game. Now, I debated adding his receiving yards taking his rushing plus receiving. As you can see, more often than not, when he hits one, he hits the other. Hits the other. That number is the best price you can get at 89.5. I decided to just stick with the rushing because he's not used a ton in the receiving game. I mean, his targets aren't really like some games has a lot of targets, 7, 6. More often than not, he's getting 3 or fewer. And I just didn't want to try and get cheeky with the running back receiving prop, which I am known to do. So I just went with the 80 plus rushing number. Again, you can get this at better odds than Bet365. I'll have a list of all the bets at the end of the video in case you're curious what the odds are. But that's play number 1. Play number 2. In the same game, I'm going as square as a bet can possibly go, and I'm taking the other running back to hit his rushing total, Saquon Barkley. Now, I took this one for a ladder play. Now, I was able to get over 106.5 for 1 unit. Right now, the best offer price is 110.5. I would still put a unit on that bad boy. And then I put a half unit on him to get the 130 plus. 130 plus, and I put a quarter unit on him to get to 150 or more rushing yards. Nobody can stop Saquon Barkley. He's had amazing games against the best run defenses you can think of. The Ravens, best run defense in the NFL. He had 107 yards in that game. He had a big run in the fourth quarter. The Eagles were winning most of that game. I mean, the Ravens are like the peak, literally opponent ranked number 1. He had over 100 yards against them. Want to know what happened the last time he played the Rams? 255 yards. He had 2 separate 70-yard runs in this game. So you take out 2 70-yard runs, he still had like 110 rushing yards against them. And I mean, Saquon's just been amazing. 176, 159, 146, 150, 167. Last week, he had 119. He could have easily hit 150 if he didn't slide at the end of his run. And that was another very, very good run defense. Now he's going up against the Rams. Not a great run defense. I know their defense looked phenomenal last week. That was more, in my opinion, a negative on the Vikings and their offensive line than it is the Rams defense is definitely good. I don't think that they're as good as what we saw last week, and they can get kind of bullied up front. They have really good pass rushers. Fisk and Verse are awesome. They're not as good against the run, and the Eagles just took it to them last game. Now, I get it. Like, if you're the Rams, how do you win this game? We are not letting Saquon Barkley beat us. Teams have tried. The Commanders in this game right here did not want to let Saquon Barkley beat them. He had 150 yards in that game. He had 100 yards after the first quarter until Jalen Hurts got hurt. So teams can try all they want to say, we're not letting Saquon Barkley beat us. I just don't think that they're going to be successful doing so. And the volume that he gets is just crazy. I mean, 31, 25 last week, 29. He only had fewer than 20 carries in probably 6 games this year. And this one was a blowout. This one was a blowout. And this one was a blowout in the opposite direction. Every close game, he's getting 20 or more carries. He's obviously their best weapon. Hurts doesn't look like he can throw the ball. The Eagles don't look like they can form a good passing game. And it hasn't mattered because he just is insane on the ground. So I think they're going to have success running the ball. I think they're going to spam the run game again. And, I've tried way too many times to get cheeky betting the Eagles game. I've taken Saquon Barkley receiving yards twice. I've taken Kenneth Gainwell rushing yards. I've taken Dallas Goedert receiving, Grant Calcaterra receiving. Enough of that. I'm going with Saquon Barkley rushing yards. If this is the first week in a long time that he has a bad game, so be it. I'm not going to be upset taking a Saquon Barkley rushing yard prop. So that is my second and final pick for this Eagles game. I'm going to have 4 bets total, so 2 in each game. Next up, we have another ladder play. Justice Hill, I took him, so I was able to get him over 19.5 receiving yards for a unit. I would still take it at 21.5. And I put a half unit on him to get to 30 plus, which is, again, best offered on Bet365. You see that we don't even have, this is plus 195 at Bet365. You see we don't even have FanDuel or DraftKings up here, but it's 1 unit on the main line play, which right now is 21.5. It's a half unit on 30 plus. This is all play on the matchup. I mean, Justice Hill has hit over 21.5 only 6 of 16 games. Look at the game in which he had his best receiving game of the year. 78 yards against this Buffalo Bills team. A game that the Ravens won 35-10. So you think if there's any game where a receiving running back wouldn't do anything, it would have been this game. But the Ravens identified a matchup advantage for Justice Hill in the air, and they used him a lot. I mean, he hit a long passing touchdown, hit a long receiving touchdown in that game. And Derrick Henry blew up in that game. So if you're like, hey, why are you taking Justice Hill? Derrick Henry's going to blow up. That's great. Both can happen. The Bills defense really struggles guarding the running back out of the backfield. As you can see, literally 32nd. They have allowed the most receiving yards to running backs in the entire NFL. And it's not just like, oh, they got beat for a couple big plays. You want to look at receptions? Second most. So the second most receptions on the most receiving yards. And then you want to look at like how frequently the running back gets targeted against the Buffalo Bills. Second most in the entire NFL. And now we see number 1 is the Green Bay Packers. I made the mistake of taking Saquon last week, so this isn't perfect. But receiving backs have success against the Bills. And, I actually do think that the Ravens win this game. I'm not betting that. But even with the Ravens winning, I still think Justice Hill is going to have a big game on through the air. A big game meaning like 30 yards. That's not crazy. Just because that's where you can develop, where you can gain a matchup advantage against the Bills. So our third bet and our first one in this Ravens-Bills game, which is just going to be a great game, is Justice Hill receiving yards prop over, I guess right now, over 21.5 and a half unit on 30 plus. And then our last bet is something that burned me last week, but I'm going right back to it. It's Josh Allen rushing yards, 50 plus. Now, you can get this at plus 115. So we see that the best offered price technically as of right now is FanDuel at plus 105. You can get it at plus 115. Now, this one, I don't admittedly have a lot of plays like this. There's not a ton of data behind this one. It's just Josh Allen running more in important games, and especially in a playoff game. Now, he missed this last week. He had 46 rushing yards, and the Bills won that game 31-7. Now, it was close at halftime, but they really took it to him in the second half. And if this game was even remotely close in the fourth quarter, he probably would have ran for 4 more yards. So yes, we got burned last week. I don't really care much because he ran enough like we wanted to. The game just got out of hand. I don't think this game's going to get out of hand. And this Ravens run defense is phenomenal. I mean, they've allowed the fewest rushing yards per game. If you look at them against running backs, they've also allowed the fewest rushing yards to running backs in the NFL. And look at Josh Allen's playoff log. So yeah, he missed it last week, 46 yards. Last year, 70 yards in both games. Then he missed it the year before, but then 68, 66, 88, 54, 92. I mean, some of these games were early in his career when he couldn't really pass yet. But last year, he could definitely pass, and he ran for 70 yards in both games. So I just think that when the games get more important, Josh Allen runs more. And that's really all there is to it. So give me Josh Allen rushing yards as our fourth and final pick of the video. And that's all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the links in the description of the video. If you want to support the channel, link to Outlier, link to my Dub Club where I send all my bets out for $5 a month. Appreciate everybody for watching. Everybody bet responsibly and have a good one.